Our top story this hour. For the first time since 2017, North Korea has fired at least one ballistic missile over Japan. The Japanese defense minister has said the North Korean missile was likely an intermediate-range ballistic missile.
今回の弾道ミサイルが約1000km に及ぶ高度に達し、約4600キロ飛翔したこと等を踏まえれば、当該弾道ミサイルは中距離弾道ミサイル以上の射程を有する弾道ミサイルであったものとみられますが、北朝鮮は過去4回、火星12型の中距離弾道ミサイルを発射しており、同型の可能性があります。
Condemning the latest missile launch, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has termed the recent launches by North Korea reckless.
先ほど、北朝鮮が弾道ミサイルを発射し、我が国上空を通過し、太平洋上に落下したとみられます。最近の度重なる弾道ミサイルの発射に続く暴挙であり、強く非難をいたします。
The South Korean president has called the launch a provocation that violates UN regulations. He has vowed a stern response against North Korea's missile launch.
이런 무모한 핵 도발은 우리 군을 비롯한 동맹국과 국제사회에 결연한 대응에 직면할 것입니다.
North Korea's missile launch also triggered an immediate response from the United States. The top U.S. diplomat for East Asia called the incident unfortunate and said a path of dialogue always remained open and urged Pyongyang to refrain from destabilizing actions. Meanwhile, the White House has announced that the U.S. National Security Advisor has separately spoken with his South Korean and Japanese counterparts about North Korea's missile launch over Japan. Now, according to Japanese officials, the missile passed eastward over Japan after launching from North Korea's Mupyeongri area at 7:23 a.m. local time.
北朝鮮は本日7時22分ごろ、北朝鮮内陸部から弾道ミサイル1発を東方向に発射しました。詳細については分析中ですが、当該弾道ミサイルは我が国の東北地方上空を通過した後、7時44分ごろ、太平洋上の我が国排他的経済水域外に落下したものと推定されます。
The Japanese government has wanted citizens to take cover and urged them not to approach anything suspicious. Authorities have also issued an alert to the residents in the northeastern regions of the country. North Korea has fired 23 ballistic and other missiles just this year, and the latest launch is the fifth round of weapons test by North Korea in the past 10 days. Experts see these launches as an apparent response to the military drills that were conducted jointly by South Korea and the United States of America. For more on this big story, we're now joined by Dr. Robert Edwin Kelly. He joins us from Busan, South Korea. He's a political analyst and expert on inter-Korean affairs. Thanks very much, Dr. Kelly, for speaking to WION. Now, North Korea has fired 23 ballistic and other missiles just this year, and today's launch is the fifth round of weapons test, as we just mentioned, by North Korea in just the last 10 days. Do you see this as a response to the military drills that have been recently conducted jointly by South Korea and the U.S.?
In part, but it's also a larger part of the North Korean effort to blow out or develop, if you will, a full nuclear weapons program. The North Koreans have made it pretty clear since the failure of the negotiations with Donald Trump a couple years back and the South Korean president, that, you know, though the negotiation was over and they were going to return in this effort to, like I said, sort of build out a full-blown program or a full-spectrum program. That means you need a lot of tests. The North Koreans want more than just the big missiles that can strike the United States. They want to put nuclear weapons on submarines. They want to put nuclear weapons on the battlefield. They want different range missiles. And so I'm not sure if these tests are linked to individual moments. We always wonder about this, how they link to a U.S. election or something like that. That's possible. But it's also just the need of the North Koreans to regularly test all these things. You know, they're probably going to test a nuclear weapon because the North Koreans have really come to rely on a nuclear missile force as the backbone of their military.
Right. Now, Dr. Kelly, South Korea says this is a grave provocation. It has warned of a stern response. The United States says its commitment to South Korea and Japan's defense remains ironclad. The question really is, what kind of a response can we expect? And are we likely to see a further escalation of tensions in the region?
Yeah, the Americans, the Japanese, and the South Koreans don't have a lot of options, which is one of the reasons why these things keep happening without much of a response on our part, right? North Korea is already pretty heavily sanctioned. That's the most obvious non-military effort to make, but North Korea is really under sanction already, and the big issue there is getting the Chinese and the Russians to help enforce them. You know, we could take more sort of aggressive kinetic action. People have talked about shooting down one of these missile tests, you know, but that's risky because it might not work. People have talked about maybe striking the missile sites, but of course, you know, if you bomb North Korea, nobody really knows what would happen. And I think that's why these things keep happening, right? We keep having these conversations. I've been on this network before, right, on this exactly this issue, and we're just in this tight spot. There's no obvious answer. There's no obvious approach that we have, and so the North Koreans, as you said, keep dialing up the tensions, in part because they can get away with it because our options are so poor.
The options are limited. What next in the region? This latest move by North Korea certainly is being seen as a grave provocation by South Korea, Japan and the United States. What kind of a response are we likely to see? That remains the million-dollar question. Dr. Robert Kelly, thank you so much for speaking to WION and sharing with us your perspective on that important and big story of the day.
Thank you for having me.